Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Michael Mbayi. I'm a legal director at Pinsent Mason. I'm also co-chair of the CMU committee of the LPEA. For our international audience, LPEA, the Luxembourg Private Equity and Venture Capital Association, is the most trusted and relevant representative body of private equity and venture capital practitioners with a presence in Luxembourg. And I welcome you today for Videocast with Diana Murakhovskaya. Diana is co-founder of the Artemis Fund, and we'll talk about supporting women entrepreneurs. Hi, Diana.
Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Diana. So first of all, in a snapshot, can you please explain to us what is the Artemis Fund and what you do?
Yeah, thanks so much. So I'm one of the three general partners and co-founders of the Artemis Fund. We're a venture capital fund. We're based in Houston, Texas, investing nationally in the United States in female founders and co-founders in the seed stage, so fairly early stage, in what we call modernizing wealth. We lead seed rounds for companies in fintech, commerce enablement, and care tech.
Thank you. And I'm curious to know why you formed this fund which was the purpose of it?
Yeah, my background actually started on Wall Street. I was a mechanical engineer and worked at Lehman Brothers and tech investment banking and then commodities on the sales and trading side for about 10 years. And I left a little disenchanted from the industry and thought, never finance, never tech. I was living in New York at the time, and I started a company with a friend, a tech startup focused on networking and relationships for women and finding friends. But one of the things we noticed was a lot of the companies around us that were female founded or diverse founded really had a tough time raising capital. A lot of them didn't come out of those networks that were finance driven. When we started to dig into the numbers, we realized that less than 2% of funding of the $300 billion of venture capital dollars just in the US alone goes to women and women founders. And so it was an interesting problem that we started to solve by starting an accelerator called the Monarch incubator, focused on helping companies raise capital, really build those networks. One of the other kind of interesting pieces of data is that when female founders get capital, they exit a year faster, they return 63% more dollars, 200% higher revenue per dollar invested. And so the numbers were all there, and we really couldn't understand what it was that was preventing people from investing in them. A lot of the decisions, unfortunately, are not made by diverse people at the venture capital side. There's about, maybe 10% of decision makers in VC in the US alone that are women, and probably only 5% that actually own and operate those firms. And so a lot of it really goes back to this network issue. And so when I met my two partners, one, Leslie, who was a lawyer for over 30 years, and Stephanie, who worked in policy and recruiting, it was really something we wanted to solve here in Texas, especially because there's not a ton of venture here. And it's almost a blank slate that we thought we could start a firm in a place that didn't have those deep roots of Silicon Valley. And so we launched in 2019 and are now raising and investing out of our second fund.
Thank you, Tina. And what kind of opportunities exist for backing early stage founders?
Yeah, I mean, there are massive markets that you can tackle. We often get asked, are there enough female founders starting companies? Well, we look at 3,000 companies a year. Are they only solving for beauty or fashion? 65% of those companies that we look at are in fintech, commerce enablement, care tech, and these are massive industries. The care economy alone in the US is $650 billion of completely untapped, companies that could get started to innovate. If you think about fintech, I know there's been a lot of pressure on fintech companies recently, especially in the public markets, but it's about 2 to 5%, depending on when you look, of the GDP of actual, legacy fintech players. And so we can rewrite a lot of these old legacy companies with new innovation focused on diverse populations and underserved markets.
Thank you, Diana. And concretely, what kind of difficulties are facing female founders in practice? Why is it important to support them?
Yeah, I mean, I think, they make up half the population. And so it's really important to have these diverse voices and ideas of what brings to light innovation. They're solving for different problems that others may not understand because it's not necessarily the problem of the VC on the other side. Some great examples include, we've got a company called Hop Skip Drive. It's providing small vehicle transportation solutions for children getting to and from school activities, working with foster care systems, school districts, started by a working mother of 3 working mothers, really, who couldn't get her kids in place where they needed to. It's a massive market. They're doing over $50 million of revenue, growing extremely fast, but it wasn't necessarily the problem of a VC, on the other side that would have understood it. And so a lot of times it's these large, care economy or financial situations that the VCs don't understand because they're predominantly male. And because they have a lot of pattern recognition, they're thinking about, well, this doesn't look like a Facebook to me, or this doesn't look like something that I know. But it's really important to include these voices in the way they're hiring, in the way they're building those companies. Most of our companies, I think it's 55% diverse in terms of the makeup of their backgrounds, their female-male component. And so there's a lot of data out there that shows, not just in venture, but across all asset classes, that diversity of thought really does drive better returns. And so on top of the better returns, there's just a lot of impact that could be created by allowing these companies to thrive and build.
Thank you. So you say that this is good from a business perspective to invest in female founders.
Yes, for sure. I mean, they're more cash efficient. Right now, there's been a lot of pressure again on venture capital with a lot of things happening macroeconomically with the public markets and venture. Most of our companies, though, because they've always come from a place of of scarcity, they're always thinking about, when can I be profitable? How can I grow this company in a more sustainable way? And so for us, that just creates a lot of upside because these companies are much better stewards of our investment and of the follow-on investors after that.
Mm-hmm. And now, you personally, what type of teams are you excited about? What kind of company interests you?
Yeah, and so on the team side, we really like founders that have experience in the product that they're building. So they're not necessarily serial entrepreneurs, but they've spent 10, 20 years working in those industries, and they really understand the problem. Entrepreneurship is a very lonely and isolating job. And so they really have a passion to solve it, stemming from really, being one of those consumers and working in that space. They're great at hiring and thinking about, here are the areas that I really need help on. We've got a very concentrated portfolio approach. So we really screen for founders that are interested in more than just capital in that partnership. In terms of some industries we're really excited about, on the fintech side, we're really thinking about, what is the next sort of generation of finance companies? And so for us, we're looking a lot at infrastructure and thinking about how do we, modernize some of that legacy tech. In the US, payment rails like ACH clearing launched in the 70s. So a lot of the sort of infrastructure that banks run on is really old. We're thinking about B2B payments. And so how, all these industries can become more digital. Vertical fintech, we've got a company in the mobile payment space focused on mobile businesses, really going beyond digital payments and providing very industry-specific tools and revenue opportunities. We're really interested in risk compliance, fraud. So again, the kind of B2B side of fintech. And then on the care economy, we think about solutions around aging in place. We've got a company that for elders to age in place with supplemental care from neighbors for non-medical services. The U.S. has a massive aging population, and not all of them, are interested in living in homes or in, senior kind of care centers. They're really thinking about more independent lives, and so thinking about support that can be provided from that. We're thinking about wealth transfer. Baby boomers in the US, so kind of those born between 1944 and 64, they've hold an estimated $30 trillion in wealth, including 2.5 million small businesses. And so a lot of that is going to get transferred to, whether it's, the younger generations or their, female members. And so we think about kind of, estate planning and innovations around smoothing that transition process.
Thank you, Diana. In terms of success story, have you some success stories in store for us?
Yeah, we're still a young fund, and so venture capital is in the sort of long-term patient game. But Hop Skip Drive that I mentioned is an incredible success story that really was hit during COVID. Working with school districts and foster care systems that really shut down, but they really stayed lean and thought about how to enhance their product offering, focused on safety and cleanliness around vehicles, and really have come back to. I think now they're at 9x those COVID revenues and continuing to expand markets, very high user retention. And then on the driver side, their drivers actually get a much more fair wage than you would at a typical Uber, Lyft, or other kind of piece of it, because they're not going direct to consumer. They're not, buying expensive customers. So we're really excited about that company for sure.
Thank you. And as we say in the introduction, you are based in the US. So what are your views on the venture capital markets globally?
Yeah, I mean, I'm based in the US, but based in Houston. And I think Houston is very similar to some of the international venture capital markets. There's a group I'm part of called the Transact Group. It's about 300 global female GPs. So from everywhere from Pakistan to Africa to the US. And I think from everything I'm hearing from them, it's a growing ecosystem from the European and from other markets. It hasn't been developed yet as much as it has in the US. There's not as many VCs and companies, but it seems like it's more interesting on the investor side. It's just how do we bridge those two pieces and connect them? And I think some of the work you guys are doing at the LPEA and some of the Trade Commission will help with that, because historically a lot of people end up fundraising in this, in their own network and their own pool.
Thank you. By the way, I've seen this morning that your work has been recognized by the Business Insider.
Yes,
so congratulations
thank you.
for this.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Yeah, congratulations, and thank you for your time today and for what you do for supporting all these female entrepreneurs. So this is a great cause, and thank you for this.
Thank you so much for having me.
Our pleasure. Bye all, and thank you for connecting to this videocast. Bye-bye.